StarCraft 2 is a competitive video game by many heralded as one of, if not, the greatest real-time strategy game. In this genre of video games, two players have to build up a base and army and manage that army to defeat their opponent. The win condition of StarCraft in particular is to destroy all your opponent's buildings. This can take quite some time though, so luckily for us, players will concede a game when they think they are in a position from which they cannot win. In such a situation, a player will write GG, which is short for good game, then concede and move on to the next game. Usually in tournaments, 3, 5 or 7 games are played to determine the winner of the series. To make the game more complicated, it is not that simple to get an army. Every unit, building and upgrade costs resources and time to get. There are two resources, minerals and gas. Minerals is the basic and main resource, while gas is used for more advanced units, structures and upgrades. And gas requires a specific building to be built on top of the node to be harvested. These resources are harvested by the worker units who collect the resource at the respective nodes and bring them back to the player's main building. On top of this, units also cost a set number of supply. Players start out with a small maximal number of supply to support, but can build supply buildings to support more units up to the maximal amount of 200 supply. The strategy and depth of StarCraft are all grounded in the management of these resources. Since you are limited by the amount of resources, which is your economy, players cannot get everything they would want. Players will have to juggle the problems of what units to make, when to attack with said units, how much value they can get out of them by controlling the units well, and much more. The early choices of what buildings and units to make, and when to make them, is what you call a build or a build order. In StarCraft you can play as one of 3 races, Terran, Zerg or Protoss. Each race is unique and do not have the same stuff and strategies at their disposal, and they bring another layer of depth to the game. The difference between the races will be covered in the 4th video, but right now you just need to know that they do exist. Players only get to see what their unit sees, everything else is hidden in the so-called fog of war. So another key component to StarCraft is to try and gather intel on your opponent and deny your opponent to gather important information on you. This is mainly done by sending a unit of yours, usually a worker unit, to your opponent's base. This is called scouting. By scouting you hope to get information that you can use to make your army better against your opponents. Because of this, StarCraft is a lot of times with good reason compared, among other things, to card games like poker. On top of the strategical depth, a player also has to have good mechanics. To play StarCraft 2, at a high level it is needed to be able to execute a lot of things at once and execute it well at the same time. How fast, efficient and precise you are with your input with no regards to your strategy is what we are talking about when we speak of mechanics. You distinguish between 2 different mechanical skills of a player, macro and micro. Macro, which is short for macro management, is the player's ability to spend their resources efficiently on structures, unit production and upgrades. Merely simple things such as always keep building workers constantly without queuing your command is more complicated than you may think. Macro is the most important mechanical skill of them all because players with much more expensive army generally will win an engagement. The other skill, micro, which you guessed is short for micromanagement, is the other side of the coin. How well can a player control their units? We're talking about all the movement, positioning, targeting and more you do with your army. While I said that the person with the more expensive army generally wins, a player with superior micro will be able to get more value out of their units. But there's only so much you can do as a human being at once, so players have to balance their own focus on the 2 different tasks of macro and micro. StarCraft is very much a game about multitasking and playing as fast as possible. Usually, speed is measured in actions per minute, short APM, and high-level players issue more than 200 unique commands each and every minute. Sometimes they even reach around or above 500 mouse clicks and keystrokes each minute. While they click as furiously as they can, their APM and their attention are very much a hidden resource that players have to maximize. But unlike other resources in the game, it's not linked straight to any weird game rule that is just made up, but it's linked directly to the player's mental and physical capabilities. Before we conclude this first video, I think we now have enough knowledge to be walked through the interface. Different tournaments use different interfaces with various amounts of information, but the following should be information you would always like to be able to read off the screen by yourself. All units and buildings have a set amount of HP, that is, if damaged enough to reach 0, the unit or building will be destroyed. The amount of HP is represented by this bar above the unit and the building. The names, colors and race chosen by the players are also shown, together with the amount of resources each of them have. How many minerals and gas each player has is very important information. We also talked about the importance of supplies, since that number represents how much stuff each player has. On this interface in particular, we also see how the supply is divided up into workers and army, so that we can better understand the players' economies and army's strength. On top of this, we also have one area of this interface showing us various stuff. Most of the time, you will here see the production tab for both players, which is showing you exactly what the players currently are devoting their resources to. The last important thing is the minimap at the bottom left. This is a small representation of the whole battlefield. On the minimap you get shown where the players have their units and buildings, and also what part of the battlefield you're currently looking at. But again, I want to re-emphasize that different tournaments use different interfaces. In these examples I've shown you the interface used in WCS, Red Bull Battlegrounds and more, but other tournaments like GSL use something that looks like this. The same information is still here, it's just rearranged a little. This concludes the first part of the series. We've looked at understanding the interface and what is physically required of the players themselves. But more importantly, we looked at the basic game rules of StarCraft 2. Join me next time to take a look at the basics of how you do strategy in such an environment.